Getting over it with Bennett Foddy, one of the most hated games on the internet.
Oh God!
One of my all-time favorites. But I'm disappointed we don't have more games like this. So I spent an entire year trying to make one, and this video documents the entire process I suffered through to make it. And it's available today on Steam. Please buy it. Okay, big surprise. I kind of want to make a climbing game. As far as I can tell, there aren't really any actual climbing games out there except for Bennett Foddy's Flash game from 2011, which I don't understand how to play. So this seems like a good gap in the market. But how do you control both hands and feet without it getting too complicated? My first thought was to make it turn-based. So you'd move your hand, then your other hand, and your feet, and so on. Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna work. But we'll give it a try. So I started a fresh new project in Unity. Actually, I started this project in Godot, but I later had to switch to Unity. Anyways, more on that later. And after a few hours, I got something. And let's add some physics. This is cursed. I don't know about this. Well, it is difficult, but I can't say I'm having much fun. I think it's all just a little too confusing and clumsy feeling. Okay, let's think about this. While most other rage games are frustrating because they're intentionally designed to be frustrating, and getting over it was sort of like learning how to ride a bike.
Bit more speed.
Yep. Frustration is just a part of learning something new.
Oh, there we go.
Which makes it fun. And then you realize that it's not hard. You just sucked at it. Okay, so maybe I just suck at these other games, and that's why I don't find them fun. Whatever. I don't know if I actually had a point with any of this. Okay, back to the game. I think we need to simplify. So let's forget about the legs and focus on the hands only. But how do you control two hands with only one mouse? With two of them, obviously.
Holy shit! Here we go!
Well, actually, it didn't work. And it seems kind of stupid to ship a game where you need two mice. So, after hours wasted trying different things, possibly days, I finally figured it out. Okay, and here's how it works. Your mouse movement directly translates to a force being applied to each hand. The hands are connected to the body using standard Newtonian physics, and whenever you hold on to something, the direction of the force is reversed. Confused? Yep, me too. But it works. You can also move sideways, and it turns out you can even jump a little bit. And with some animations layered in, it's starting to look pretty broken, actually. This can't be the right clip. What happened? Oh, that's it. Wait a minute. Something strange. The controls feel actually really good. And as I was figuring them out, I was having fun. It's hard to describe without you playing the game yourself. It's kind of one of those things, you just have to feel it. So I guess you just have to buy the game. Okay, this is getting a bit boring. How about some rocks? Yeah, in the game though. So this is the idea for the game. You have to climb your way up a huge level, and you can potentially fall down all the way to the bottom. We don't actually have a bottom. Let's fix that. And there. Maybe something softer. Like, maybe water? Uh-huh, and you didn't think I was gonna bore you with the details of how the water works? Well, think again, mother... Okay, so here's how it works. First, we evenly distribute some points along a line, and this will be our surface. And then, if the player falls in, say around here, we can apply a force to the closest point. And then we apply the same force to the neighboring spheres, and the next ones, and so on. Oh, and then we need some damping. But it wouldn't look like water if we didn't have any waves. And if we run a line in between each point, it kind of looks like water. Alright, I think we need a character. So I quickly model this guy and I think it looks pretty good. Okay, fine, I didn't make it. I found it online and it was free, okay? I did texture it myself though, in case that counts for anything. Well, alright, this might be a problem. So let's cover him up a little bit. Uh-oh. Okay, so now we're gonna have to deal with cloth, and cloth is pretty complicated and can end up misbehaving a lot. I've made promises in the past to never ever use cloth in video games again, but it turns out that the built-in cloth thing in Unity is actually pretty good. Oh, thank God that's done. Okay, on to the next problem. When you fall really fast and grab a rock, you just kind of snap to it like a magnet. Okay, so let's see if we can fix this by adding some friction. So yeah, friction. How easy do you think that was? Well, really easy actually. I just used the friction joint that comes with Unity. Huh. And after some programming, I can now assign a friction number to each surface. And so we have some grippy rocks, and we also have some slippy rocks. And it was around this time I switched from using Godot to the Unity game engine. Because in Godot I ended up having to code pretty much all the physics by myself, and I'm really stupid, so it didn't really work out that well. Whereas in Unity, I have all these little helpful things like the friction joint and a few other things. And I kind of have a confession to make. Those prototypes I showed you earlier, well, I kind of recreated those in Unity. My actual prototypes in Godot from like a year ago, well, they look like this.
Alright, this is the first alpha male version of this game. It's really cool.
Okay, moving on. So, now that we have the basics of this game laid down, time to make our level. So we start off with the first area of the game, which should be fairly easy, and it is. But because I know you guys are a bunch of whining babies, I'm realizing that we have a problem. See, if you make even the slightest mistake, even in a simple area like this, you're gonna fall back down all the way to the bottom, forcing you to restart. And then you're gonna rage quit. And we can't have that now, can we? There is such a thing as boiling the frog slowly. We need to make the player feel invested in the game first, and then we crank up the heat. So, we need some childproofing. By adding some of these slippery rocks, if you do fall, at least you have something to hold on to. Now, you won't be able to climb on them, but it should give you a chance to correct your mistake. So if you still manage to fall, it's your fault, and you have only yourself to blame. So the first section is really just for the player to get used to the controls and understand how to play the game, but then eventually you'll reach this point, where you'll be forced to make your first jump. But this time, there's no childproofing. And jump. People are gonna get really mad here. It's probably a little too difficult, actually. But eventually, we probably will need some type of checkpoint in the game. The easiest option would of course be to just add certain points in the game where if you fall down, you get teleported back up. But this feels cheap and doesn't really suit the game at all. This is a rage game after all, so you should be able to lose a lot of progress. I thought about adding little hooks here and there that once you grab them, you're safe and you can quit the game without having to worry. But it still doesn't fix the fact that when you fall, most likely you'll fall all the way back down, which seems kind of unfair if you've made a good amount of progress. What if we place a body of water higher up that will serve as a safety net and a resting ground for the player, and then we continue building our level on top of that. This way we can control how far down the player will fall if they do fall. I'm pretty proud of this solution, I will admit. I then spent some time building the background and setting the look for the game. And when I say setting the look, what I really mean is using the default settings in Unity. Which apparently Bennett Foddy also did, since, well, both games look the same now. Whoops. Well, like Jonas told me, having your game compared to other similar games is actually a really good thing, since it helps people associate your work with something they're already familiar with. And when I posted the trailer for the game, Bennett himself retweeted it, and I think he liked it, so I'll take that as his seal of approval.
Please don't sue me, Bennett.
I've been experimenting with different obstacles, like moving objects and physics-based objects. Something I ended up spending a lot of time on was getting the hands to connect with the rocks. If you look closely, you'll notice how the shadows aren't connecting with the hands, and, well, it's because they're not. Well, after a lot of research and trial and error, I ended up with this solution. It looks crazy from this perspective, but from the camera, looks great. I mean, in some cases, you'll notice how the arms are really long in the shadow, but nobody needs to know that, right? People are so easy to fool. And I spent the next 6 months finishing the rest of the game. Yep, 6 months. I won't bore you with the details, and I don't want to spoil the game for those of you who actually want to play it, but I'll give you a little sneak peek. So after you finish the first area, you'll enter this jungle. So it's a completely different environment, but also you'll be faced with a new challenge. So you'll have this running water, which if you grab, you'll be pushed back down. So now you'll have to be a little bit more careful about where you're placing your hands. And if you think that's bad, you're gonna love this next part. And the rest of the game consists of 7 different areas, each with their own unique challenges. And I also created some sound effects. And I kept tweaking the controls pretty much throughout the entire project, and they ended up being around 1,000 lines of code. And besides the character, I ended up making pretty much all of the assets in the entire game myself, which took some time. Making a menu, creating the Steam page.
Well, that's it.
1 year. The question is, can you beat it?